Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With the launch of Warzone Mobile, there's obviously a lot of discussion with mobile versus standard Warzone. Obviously, Verdansk and Rebirth being back in mobile is a huge talking point, whereas with the general version of Warzone on console and PC, we know Rebirth is rumored for Season 3, Verdansk is rumored for COD 2024's big map integration potentially in December or January, but recently, Call of Duty has done an interview with IGN where they give us a little bit more insight into mobile versus general Warzone, and some of the answers in specific lead us to some very interesting talking points, I would say, with some of the design directions they've gone with standard Warzone. So here we are on the article itself. I'm not gonna lie, I installed the night mode like Chrome extension specifically for this because reading this all in bright white, I was blinding myself. But anyways, that's besides the point. Activision explains why Warzone Mobile has 120 player Verdansk and PC and console do not. That's the subject of this article, and there's a lot more questions that have already been asked about it within it as well, so we'll have a lot to break down. But that being the subject line probably gives you a good indication of what we're talking about here today. The player count and the map rotation and everything within Warzone right now has been a hot topic for some time, so let's see what exactly they have to say here. Initial intro here is IGN just going through and talking about Warzone Mobile a bit. Clearly, Activision is betting big on Warzone Mobile, which launches globally yesterday by the time you guys are seeing this video. But while mobile gamers will no doubt get stuck into its impressive recreation rather, of Battle Royale, some PC and console COD players have expressed concern that Activision is going to focus more on mobile rather than MW3 or Warzone in general, because mobile absolutely has the largest player base out of everything that COD is doing right now. There are good reasons for concern. Warzone Mobile launches with Verdansk, a map that fans have wanted to see re-release on PC and console. Warzone Mobile's Verdansk, meanwhile, supports up to 120 players, whereas Warzone on PC and console is currently limited to 100. How can that be if the mobile version has more players, but it's just for mobile and not for, you know, huge, insanely upgraded PCs in the current gen consoles, right? That question, among many others, was put to Chris Plummer, Senior Vice President and co-head of mobile at Activision Publishing, in an interview. So let's get into it. Why did Activision decide to make a Warzone specific mobile game when it's already got a very successful Call of Duty mobile game already? When we launched Warzone on console and PC, which was a few months after mobile came out, what we observed was a real positive change in our community, which was the shared consciousness that came from having the same content, the shared progression. Obviously, COD Mobile and standard Call of Duty don't have any shared progression. COD Mobile is its own beast. Now, while they do have like similar guns and whatnot, it's obviously its own separate game. I should preface that. They're all of a sudden talking about all the same stuff, including a whole audience, which came in through Warzone, which was free to play. So we saw our audience grow and became more activated by that and the shared experience. And it was quite remarkable, and it was something we desired to do heavily on mobile. But in order to deliver that in full and really realize that ambition, we had to deliver that on our own technology, because only through using the Call of Duty tech could we deliver the content and cross progression so that you literally spent your time on any platform. It'd be valuable. That's leveling up your progress on any platform. That requires our own engine to really start it there, and with this desire to connect our community. When we talked to the players after the launch of both of those titles and asked them, what is it that you want? Their desire to have access to that content was a really, really big driver. Cross progression was by far the top of the list, and so that started it all. But as we progressed towards taking the super high fidelity, high performance console and PC engine and adapting it to function on mobile, that work ended up being a quite big amount of work. Once we got there, it started to open up the floodgates to all kinds of new capabilities and innovations that we haven't done before. So they're basically saying, yeah, when we first started to do this, we realized it needs to be its own thing. COD Mobile has its own thing, but it's not built up to the same standards of tech and everything that we were doing with Warzone Mobile. So they made it its own thing, and cross progression was a huge driving factor there. And that makes sense. That's probably one of the biggest W takeaways from Warzone Mobile, is that say you need to log on to get a daily reward, but you just don't have time to boot up the PC or boot up your console. Open it up on your phone while you're out and about, you know, eating lunch or something, get that daily reward, you're good to go. Need to check up on how much time you have left in an event, open it up on your phone or on your tablet. You can see, okay, I've got 2 days, I'll have plenty of time once I'm back and I've finished my work or finished my school or whatever the case is. That's a cool thing to have integrated there. Chris Plummer goes on to say Battle Royale really took off on COD Mobile. It is a massive, massive market on mobile now, but it's just a prototype. If you drop into Battle Royale games on mobile, you're basically dropping in with 100 bots or a lot of bots, mostly bots. bots. It's just not the real thing. And so when we got that onto the COD tech and that was working, we now have access to the Demonware backend and all this kind of optimization that's happened in COD for 20 years. And all of a sudden we can get 120 humans in the same match. And it's like, wait, this is the battle royale for the first time then on mobile. It's not only Call of Duty, it's got the real COD systems, it's got the real controls, physics, handling, responsiveness, all that stuff that makes Call of Duty weapons and everything feel great. But now we've got over 100 people in a lobby, and you can go into Verdansk with real humans, and I think that's a game changer. So yes, you are playing with 120 real players in Warzone Mobile. It's not like other potential BRs on the market, or even COD Mobile, for instance, where it could be a lot of bots filling up those spots. Nice rhyme. So these things kind of started to really define the experience. It wasn't just about the content anymore and the shared progression. It was now about the actual gameplay experience, which is radically different from anything you can get anywhere else. They say today we support 6 generations of devices. On the very bleeding edge, we're supporting some highly experimental, crazy visual stuff. And I think that's a double-edged sword. It's awesome that you have this massive availability, 6 generations of devices. At the same time, though, how much are you limiting the current cutting-edge tech by keeping it alive on the super old generations? Like, for instance, with standard Warzone on console and PC, how much of the game now is limited because they're still catering to various different aspects of Xbox One and PlayStation 4, which are years and years and years old, right? At what point do you have to drop those and say, okay, let's just focus on the current tech? So that's, in my opinion, like I said, a bit of a double-edged sword. Now, this is by far one of the most interesting questions here. Warzone Mobile supports 120 players, but Warzone on PC and console is currently limited to 100 players. How do you reconcile that mobile, which you think of as a less powerful platform, is able to have more players than console and PC? And Chris says, I think it's important to point out that that is not a technical limitation in any direction. I'm going to circle back to this because, admittedly, I have my personal doubts on this. These are design choices. So the Call of Duty technology supports a lot of players. We can support more players or less players in Warzone Mobile, and the same is true on other platforms. The reason you see certain player configurations is purely through design decisions that are made based off checking out how people are playing, where the pockets of action are, where certain things happen in the journey of playing the map, and when it gets exciting or boring or whatever, the player count really impacts that. It's really important to point out that we're on a different map in Verdansk than console and PC games are today, and so the feel is different, the flow is different, the pacing is different. Over time, you may see any of the platforms, including mobile, changing and dialing up or down the player counts, not because of technical reasons, but for gameplay, pacing, and design reasons. However, you start to look at things, and that's where things become questionable, in my opinion. Because with this first thing, it's not a technical limitation in any direction. Well, here's the thing. We've seen 150 players on Verdansk back in the day, and it ran okay for what it was. It still had the typical COD servers, which are not good by any means, but it ran. We even saw BR200 back on Verdansk during Warzone 1, one of my all-time favorite LTMs. That ran and was super chaotic. And since then, what we've continuously seen is the player counts dwindle lower and lower and lower. Caldera knocked the player count down from 150 to I think 120 initially, and maybe even down to 100 if I'm remembering correctly. Obviously now our player count is lower at 100, and when you're playing the game, it's a pretty apparent thing that across the board, the Warzone servers are not good. You constantly get into games where you have just 100 players in the game, and it seems like the server is dying. It's happening in slow motion. You are stuttering like crazy. There's packet loss where you're teleporting back in time or randomly skipping around without even touching anything on your controls. The servers seem like they're being overloaded, and they just can't handle it, and the game is sort of breaking because of that. That wasn't necessarily even a thing it seems like as often as it is now back in Verdansk with the 150 players and whatnot. The size of the map, I guess that could have a good impact on it, and I think that's a viable answer there. But as far as it being a technical limitation, I can't fully buy into that given the fact that we've seen the player counts consistently drop now over the years, and it almost seems like the servers are getting worse in some cases. So that is questionable at best, I would say, and I think it is strange that in all the years since Verdansk was a thing, we've really yet to see them experiment up to 150 players or BR200, even trying to up the player count in general, maybe by a couple of squads here and there, just to see how it would affect pacing. It seems like they're just avoiding that whatsoever, then masking it behind the answer of, oh, it's a design decision based on all the data that we have that says the matches are clearly consistent enough with this, or the servers are consistent enough with this. So that's an interesting one in my opinion. By the way, as we are going through all this today, if you are new to the channel or you simply have not subscribed yet, let's change that, because every single day I got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns. Everything going on in COD is right here. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. And if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. Another big question here. You mentioned Verdansk. There's a lot of demand for that to come back to PC and console. How is it that you're able to have Verdansk come back for Warzone Mobile when it's nowhere to be found on PC and console? If you're talking about unifying the experience and having the shared technology, wouldn't it make sense for everything to happen at the same time? I like this question a lot. I like that IGN's actually asking them. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. When we think about Warzone Mobile, we're introducing it for the first time, so this is its birthday, really. We want to make sure it's introducing people in a way that we know works, and we know that Warzone was introduced on Verdansk. It is the OG, as you have rightly put it, and so what better way to bring Warzone to a whole new audience that's never played before, never played Warzone before, than the map that started it all. It's got the sight lines, the POIs, the ability to look at the map and know exactly where you want to drop in. He just said people who've never played. Okay, that's the reason we're on Verdansk, because that was the best way for us to introduce this experience to the largest audience in the world. Now, over time, what you'll see is we do have a desire and are actively working towards bringing the content experiences together even more. So the battle pass, the bundles, things like that are shared. A lot of the communal experiences there, but we intend to bring that closer together, not further over time, so that all of us are kind of talking about the same map and say, hey, let's critique this area. What's your favorite place for this? And part of that, I think, is realizing the vision. We don't have it all on day one, but we do have what we think is best as a welcome map for the large audience there. So this goes one of two directions. Either it's basically bringing credibility to the leak into the rumor that Verdansk is coming back to general Warzone on console and PC with Gulf War later on this year, or we're simply going to see the integrations of Fortune's Keep, of Ashika, of Urzikstan, whatever maybe the next big map is going to be, into Warzone Mobile as well. And then maybe you have all these maps available, or we see these rotations happen throughout various different updates and seasonal updates and things like that. One of two directions there. Either or is probably good. I hope it's the one, though, where it ends up with Verdansk being back on main Warzone. Another important question here. You have cross progression, which is obviously great for someone who's playing Call of Duty on console and PC, but you don't have cross play, mobile being able to play with console and PC. Some other battle royales do. Why did you decide against that? So it boiled down to a few things, and talking to players about the implications of this. Ultimately, if you're doing crossplay, then all platforms need to share the same fundamental tuning for things like movement and core game aspects. What our opinion and the opinion of players that we talk to is, when games that have done that in the past, usually console and it's tuned for one platform, mobile ends up having a worse experience. That, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. There's just no way on a touchscreen or even connecting a controller to your phone or tablet, it's going to be somewhat equal to playing on a PC with crazy graphics or on console fully up to date, right? There's just not a good balance between that. I think that makes a lot of sense. They also ask about cheating. Cheating has been an issue with Warzone on PC and console. I've also seen some people who are interested in playing Warzone Mobile but are wondering about the potential for cheating here. What steps have you taken to mitigate that? We're well aware this is a risk in games of this type, and it's something we care about a lot to make sure that certain bad actors aren't ruining the experience. Warzone Mobile is supported by our Ricochet team within our division, so we have a very active monitoring and action plan for handling that sort of thing. It's always going to be an ongoing thing, and I think that with the initial development and additional capabilities over time, always adapting to what we're seeing out there, we have the support. We do want to protect our players. That's just a basic PR answer there, and we know Ricochet is not very good, so that's a slight concern, I would say. I've seen some Call of Duty PC and console players hearing about all the things Activision is doing with this game and features it's got for Verdansk, the player count, and they're saying mobile is eating better than us right now. I wanted to put to you the concern that some PC and console players have. What is Activision doing? Are they going to throw everything at Warzone Mobile and then the other Call of Duty experiences might suffer? Basically, is mobile now going to have all the attention? They say, I think there's more effort and resources on Call of Duty console and PC than there's ever been. There's such a huge priority for the company. Mobile is something we've always wanted to complete that experience for our community. Maybe just because we've been talking about it a lot now, it's launching, it could feel that way, but there is so much more exciting stuff that's happening across the franchise. Can't even begin to tell you some of what's coming, not just this chapter, but upcoming seasons and other cool stuff. But of course, there's always big surprises from Call of Duty, and no exceptions in the near future. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. They're basically saying, no, mobile's not taking over. Warzone on console and PC and Call of Duty on console and PC is still a major priority there. So some interesting questions posed here and some interesting answers, some concerning, some relieving, I would say. Always nice to see the insight and the transparency though. Regardless, that's gonna wrap things up though. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it, and if you're new here, be sure to hit that sub button on your way out to stay up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.